Hi, and welcome to Tapped into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox, and I'm the publisher of Tapped into Bayonne, Tapped into Hoboken, and Tapped into Jersey City. You'll notice this week a different background, and that's because I'm not recording from the studio. Instead, I'm at home, I'm isolating, I'm trying to keep away from other people, as despite the warnings that we got last week from Debbie White, president of the HPAE, I maybe wasn't as careful as I should have been in terms of staying away from COVID-19. Maybe I spent time around too many people, but I was exposed to the virus. I'm going to be tested later today. Thankfully, right now, I'm asymptomatic, but in the interest of everyone's safety, especially my friends in the studio, I've decided to stay home. So I hope that's a bit of a lesson for all of us. We got to continue to be careful, to be vigilant, because we do want to fight back this virus as quickly as possible. With that, we also want to talk a little bit today about solutions-based journalism. And that's what I've really focused on as publisher of Tap into Bayonne, Hoboken, and Jersey City. We're trying to bring our readers and, of course, our viewers on this show, not just the problems that exist in the community, but what's being done to solve those problems. It's a more positive way of bringing the community into media reporting. And there's no greater example of solutions-based journalism than the stories that we've told about the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. And that's headed up by our guest, who I'm so proud is coming on the show with me today, and that's Governor Jim Mcgravy. Governor, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you wonderfully, Stephen. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity.
I can hear you,
I hear
Governor.
all the... Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, I just listened to all the TAP conglomerate. I mean, you've become the Hearst of our generation.
we're trying, Governor. You know, there's a lot of news to tell, obviously, in all of our communities, and I think the media has gotten away from local media, our local stories, local reporting. It's become national and global, which is just as important. But we're losing what's happening in Hoboken, what's happening in Bayonne, what's happening in all the other great cities that you love, Patterson, Morristown, Trenton, and we need to get back to that. And that's really what we're trying to do, at Tap Into, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
No, I remember when I was mayor of Woodbridge. Like, people would literally go into like the Rite Aid or the drugstore, and they would want to see the sports pages from the week past, so they would see how the high school kids did, and whether it was football or basketball or wrestling. And so at the end of the day, we're all driven by the local community. So I'm really grateful for what TAP does, not only for the local nitty-gritty stories, but also for the statewide stories. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you again for joining us. So, Governor, we want to talk about the work you're doing. You know, when we talk about solutions-based journalism, you know, obviously when I'm covering Jersey City and I'm covering Patterson, and to an extent Hoboken and Bayonne, no community is immune to the violence and the crimes that have been happening. But when we talk about solutions, the New Jersey Reentry Corporation has done yeoman's work, with you at the head, of helping these folks that have been incarcerated come out of jail, come out of the prison system, and lead more productive lives. I've been honored over the years to meet a lot of the folks that you've worked with, and I see just the smiles on their faces when they're around you, and how they light up, knowing that there's opportunity for them beyond going back to prison, which is what happens way too much. Now, I know that's a very elementary sort of version of what it is the New Jersey Reentry Corporation does, but I'm hoping maybe you can tell our readers and our viewers a bit more about the work you're doing.
Sure. And again, thank you for this opportunity. You know, part of it is also understanding the significance of addiction and what the role that addiction plays in the lives of people that are incarcerated in the state of New Jersey. You know, when we look to our clients, we have about 9,000 clients statewide. About 78% of them, Stephen, have some level of serious addiction. Upwards of 45% may have opioid use disorder. And so that's heroin addiction, that's fentanyl. And so in the state of New Jersey, you see a high correlation between the people that are imprisoned and the people that are addicted. If you're addicted, you've probably been at some point in your life court involved. And if you're in prison, in county jail, you have an acute familiarity, most likely, with addiction. So the first thing is understanding that historically, that county jails were almost detoxification units, that they were all centers for mental health. And so I think there was a growing realization, beginning with the Christie administration through the Murphy administration, that we had to do this better. And part of that is understanding that treatment is so critically important. If I can treatment in jail is a beginning, but it's not the preferred option. And so I think we've moved not only in terms of drug court, but having long-term options that address treatment. And one of the other areas that I would like to mention is that you can't cure a heroin addiction in 8 days, let alone 8 months. And so what we do at the New Jersey Reentry Corporation is we have a model that's based on 18 months. And so that's, for detoxification, residential treatment, intensive outpatient, and where necessary, medication-assisted treatment. So the first thing I'd like to emphasize is for all those families, whether in Bayonne or Hoboken, and addiction doesn't know any race, any faith, color or creed. I mean, addiction is all through New Jersey, is that we will help you with your son or your daughter grapple with the ravages of addiction, and all that you need to do is contact the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. So the first thing is addiction. If we don't address someone's addiction, they are not going to be able to be prepared to grapple with whether it's structured sober housing or employment and training or healthcare. So the first thing is addiction. But I didn't know whether or not you wanted to touch on that a little bit more. But even when you and I met with our friend Paul from the laborers, you hear that so many of these young guys and gals are interfaced with addiction in painful ways.
No, absolutely, and it's plaguing our cities, Governor. And we see that every day. We do see that in Jersey City, and it's not only in the cities, though, right? It's in the small communities. Yeah. But I do want to talk more about that when we come back. We're going to take a break in about a minute here, Governor. But what I want to focus on in the next segment is this idea not just of the addiction services you're providing, but you're also providing housing support. You're providing, of course, the job training. You're helping people get driver's licenses. I mean, these are all things that come, we just think they come naturally to a lot of us. But of course, when you've been incarcerated and this is the life you've known, you don't know how to go about that. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the work the New Jersey Reentry Corporation is doing to sort of heal and help the whole person. Governor, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be right back in a few minutes.
Thanks, Steve.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Stevens Jersey City Ford, located right off of NJ 440 North. Across the Hudson Mall is your one-stop for all your automotive needs. Check out Ford's latest models like the 2020 Ford Fusion with its stylish looks and hybrid options, or the unparalleled high-performance 2020 Ford Mustang. The 2020 Ford F-150 Raptor is ready for those rugged off-road terrains with trail control. Need a mid-sized truck for your towing and hauling? The 2020 Ford Ranger will deliver. The 2020 Ford Escape is a luxury SUV that was made for comfort and adventure on the go. Returning is Ford's legendary Bronco, which takes you back to the true meaning of off-roading. They are now available for pre-order in our showroom or on our website. Let us help you find your next vehicle. Stevens Jersey City Ford, 201-432-7272.
Most women who give birth recover without problems, but any woman can have complications after the birth of a baby. Learn the post-birth warning signs, such as fever, headache, chest pain, shortness of breath, increased bleeding, or thoughts of hurting yourself or someone else. Knowing these can save your life or the life of someone that you love. Trust your instincts. If you feel something is wrong, call and get evaluated by your healthcare provider. If your symptoms get worse or you do not hear back from your physician, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room.
RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Hi, and welcome back to Tapped into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox. I'm the publisher of Tapped into Bayonne, Tapped into Hoboken, and Tapped into Jersey City. We're very lucky to be joined today by Governor Jim Mcgreevy. Governor McGreevey, of course, his legacy precedes him, but his work now is so important in the communities that we serve and tap into, and that's with the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. Governor, in the last segment, we were talking about addiction and the addiction services you provide. And as we closed out, we started to talk about the housing, the job support, the getting a driver's licenses, these sorts of things that you're also doing, sort of helping heal the whole person, so to speak. Can you talk a bit about that for us?
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. I mean, part of it is just to think about what it would like if Steve Lenox or Jim Mcgravy, we walked out of Northern State Prison, we didn't have an ID, we didn't have medical coverage, we didn't have a job, we didn't have a house, we didn't have food. So you literally, it's almost like a bad sci-fi episode. You just sort of dropped into the middle of whether urban, suburban, or rural New Jersey with nothing. And so what we do is, and we have a program that's sort of somewhat rigidly outlined, but the whole goal is to synchronize the development. And you talked about, Steve, identification. Identification is key. Whether you're trying to get general assistance or food stamps or Medicaid, you need ID. In fact, on this coming up on Monday, we have the MVC mobile van coming to one of our sites, and we're going to have 100 gals and guys being able to get their MVC ID and driver's licenses. So that's really exciting because you need that identification if you want to get, food stamps, if you want to get general assistance or Medicaid, or even walk into a shelter or secure a job. So the first thing is obviously that MVC identification. Second is obviously linking people to employment and training, and that's so critically important that people have the training. And we work with CDL, commercial driver's license, HVAC, mechanics, and we're also looking at other industries that are reentry friendly. And we also work with people's medical needs. If a lot of our gals and guys have hepatitis B, hepatitis C, a lot of guys in prison have tattoos or utilize instruments that blood is being transferred from person to person. In that particular case, we have to be concerned about hepatitis, and we work on those issues. And so it's not only making sure that people have access to state and federal health benefits, not only making sure they have secure medical benefits and accessing them, but then it's also, employment and training. And I will tell you the interesting thing, Steve, is that during the pandemic, ironically, there are a lot of jobs that people don't want to do that our participants are willing to do. And I can't thank UPS enough, Federal Express enough, ShopRite, Wakefern, Amazon, Blue Apron. So all of those jobs that are hands-on, that require people to, jump in and out of a car, jump in and out of a truck, our guys and gals are willing to do, and they pay well. We just had 62 of our program participants hired by UPS, which is so important. So the whole goal is, and my Irish grandmother would say, God works in mysterious ways, that ironically, there are opportunities now by virtue of the fact that so many others, maybe rationally, don't want these job positions. But for our program participants, they're coming back from prison. They've got fines they've got to pay. They're concerned about outstanding warrants, which we deal with our legal volunteers and our legal points of contact in the team. But they need money in their wallets. And so because they're hungry, and God willing, we train them to take the needed precautions, they're having access to jobs that many other persons simply don't want to do during the COVID crisis. So ironically, our employment numbers are relatively stable, which is
that's
an
great
interesting.
to hear,
So,
Governor. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
And I've met so many of the men and women that are working with the New Jersey Reentry Corporation, both on the staff side, obviously, but also the men and women that are your clients, the ones that have just come out of prison and are trying to make something better. And what I find is they've got this incredible enthusiasm to make a difference. And it's great that you're there to help them. It's great your team is there to help them. And something I've noticed, though, particularly in hearing you speak and looking at your different events, including just earlier this week when you kicked off the Jersey City office or opened it, you are very proud of your faith. And yesterday I saw you had Reverend Al Sharpton was there, and of course Cardinal Tobin was there. And, any of us that study religion or practice any sort of religion, I think it's ingrained in us that we're supposed to be of service to others. Very often that gets lost. You've managed to obviously make that part of New Jersey Reentry Corporation, and part of your life. Tell us a little bit about putting your faith into practice to help the clients that you're serving.
I'm sure I'm violating some federal law, Steve, because I'm not. But in any event, but faith is a part of this stuff for us, because
Yes.
a lot of the guys and the gals, they come out and the only stories that they have heard in their lives, stories that they know. And I think stories are really important. We can provide them with all the legal support. We can provide them with the medical support, with housing support, employment and training. But at the end of this day, they have to believe that they can do this. And that when they're lonely or hungry, it's called HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, God willing, they have to try to make the right decision. And so for us, having that perspective of faith and doing the next right thing is so critically important as a part of their credo. And so whether it's the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible, the Quran, or the Bhagavad Gita, it's all about understanding that we're on this journey together. And if I can, not to delve too much into psychology, we look a lot at, in a special way, the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell. And if, we have the guys look at that, we're on this journey, suffering is part of this journey. Now, how do we make sense of? We don't want you to run away or deny or feel ashamed for this experience in prison. But that doesn't define the totality of you. We can change the trajectory of your life, but you have to do it with awareness. You have to do it deliberately, and God willing, you have to do it committed to doing the next right thing. So I think faith is important, or a moral structure is important. So I appreciate you asking that, because we drive really hard. We have Salesforce, and we're now going to be designated as one of the Salesforce nonprofit entities nationally. So we report all of our statistics. Every single interaction with a client, all 9,000 clients, gets inputted. Interaction, whether it's with a drug treatment program, whether it's a medical provider, whether it's a mental health provider, whether it's an prospective employment agency or employer, whether it's housing, we're all data driven. But what I think is essential is that the person believes they can tell a different story. If by virtue of their upbringing, if they're by virtue of their court experience, by virtue of their prison experience, I'm always going to be a bad mother, I'm always going to be a bad father, I'm always going to be a junkie, I'm never going to be responsible. If they don't change that thinking, NJRC can do everything right, but ultimately it has to be the person living into a new story. And I know that isn't
Governor,
sexy. It is. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off there so we can go to the next segment. We move so quickly, but I want to talk more about that when we come back in a few minutes. Governor, thank you again for joining us.
No, thanks, Stephen.
Pan & Pinto Properties, Jersey City. Shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces that address your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment. Adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panandpintoproperties.com. Pan & Pinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
It has actually changed my life. It's wonderful to be in recovery. I'm also a grandpa, a great-grandpa. I found joy in being abstinent from use.
I'm a family member, I'm a productive member of society, I'm a dog owner, things like that. I'm a fiance. So I think that recovery means on such a broad scale, there's so many different layers to what recovery means to me.
We're just like everyone else. We have heart and soul. It's just that we have this substance abuse disorder and that we're dealing with that. And if anything, it makes us a little bit stronger.
The most important thing for people in the communities to know is that they're just like anyone else, and that they don't necessarily want to be doing the things that they're doing, and it's a chronic illness and it's a chronic disease that needs to be addressed as so.
Hi, and welcome back to Tapped into Hudson. We're joined today by Governor Jim Mcgravy, who's now heading up the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. Governor, I think what we're finding with this show is we have to double the length of it, but I'm so enjoying this conversation. I'm so appreciative you're coming on. What we started talking about in the last segment a bit was really connecting with these folks, with the clients you're helping, 8,000, which is an incredible number. And you mentioned the corporations that are stepping up and offering jobs. And thankfully, COVID-19 has actually worked in favor in terms of putting your clients to work. Let's talk about the second, third, fourth, and fifth chances. I know that's something you say all the time. This isn't about giving people a second chance, because I'll bet many of your clients that have told me, yeah, I've been in and out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. You never give up on these folks, do you?
No, and it's just, and again, Sophia, who's sitting next to me, said, make sure I mention 591 Summit Avenue in Jersey City. So that's where we have our new offices. And again, thanks, Steve, because I get so wrapped up, I forget that I'm supposed to be plugging 591 Summit Avenue. So I mentioned it twice now. But yeah, so I think, and I was blessed. I mean, my family, my mom's family was from Arlington Avenue. My dad's family was from Lafayette, Jersey City. But I grew up, but a lot of folks didn't grow up with the advantages that, candidly, that I had. And so we like to say not everybody had a first chance. And so it's trying to ensure that people have the ability to start anew. And that's why, the old system of reentry was get somebody a job and pray that they would have it 6 weeks from now, let alone 6 months from now. And we know that that doesn't work. And so what we try to do now is to make sure that they have, whether it's addiction or their healthcare or their legal questions you talked about, identification or driver's license. We used to have people getting to work without a legal driver's license. And so what we try to do is to clean up all of that and then start looking at employment and training. And we've got a great partnership with an organization called One Huddle, and they have an app that we use at all of our sites that literally trains our participants to model or to go through the actual work steps that would happen at, whether it's a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a Wakefern. And so the whole goal is to train people to a career, train people instead of working at a warehouse, someplace that will provide for ongoing employment opportunities. And then we work with the Department of Labor, and I can't thank Commissioner Robert Acero Angelo enough, and their PACE program, pre-apprenticeship program, because a lot of our gals and guys may not have the language arts proficiency or the math proficiency. So it's bringing them the skills necessary so that they can ramp up, so that they can become an HVAC or commercial driver's license or whatever their craft that they want to perceive. So it's understanding that, when you talk about first chances, second chances, third chances, Steve, a lot of times people come into crisis, and if they don't have somebody supporting them, they may revert back to that bad decision. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that is addiction. Those are drugs. And so we try to maintain. We just talked about, you and I talked about a mutual friend of ours who was helping this young man. So here's a young man, straightened out his life, got it together, but because of an old charge, just went back before a judge who was actually sympathetic to her cause. But now that young person has a 14-month plus sentence. So that means he's going to lose his apartment. He's probably going to lose his girlfriend. He's going to lose the stability of his life and come back and start all over again. And that's what we try to do, is not only advocate for people in terms of, legal and medical and employment and housing, but we also try to be their advocate in the court Judge, is there possibility of doing this a different way? And not only writing a letter of support, but advocating there has to be an alternative. I mean, drug court is a great, Sheila Venerable in Hudson County. I mean, I have a vote of candles. She's like the best. She's hard, she's tough, but she's the best. But in so many
there's
other
compassion there as well. There's a compassion and a willingness to listen, I think, with the judge. But
no.
Governor,
Judge Venable is. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, she's wonderful. I want to look at the passion in your voice that you bring to this, and your ability to connect with people. And you can be modest if you want to be, but I think your ability to connect one-on-one with everybody you meet. This is something that we saw, me as a young student of politics, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, watching you ascend to the governor's mansion. Did a great job there. And now at NJRC, you bring that same passion, that same ability to connect. And that's so important right now. And it just seems like we're at each other's throats all the time, right? In media, in government, everywhere. Do you have any advice for all of us on how we can better connect with people?
It's just, it's an interesting question. When I worked in Hudson County Jail, and I can't thank Oscar Villas enough, and Frank Maz and the entire team there, and the warden. This may not be politically correct to say, but the women were all so loving with one another, and regardless of race or ethnicity or religion. And I found that a lot of the men, I don't know whether this happens automatically, but men seem to become more tribal, dividing sector, who do we eat with or who do we identify with? And that always stuck with me. And I think one of the things that what I try to realize is that, underneath the surface, we're all very human. The lesson for me, which was most acute, was when I was in seminary, and Father Ward Ewing sent me up to Exodus Transitional Ministry in Harlem. And I saw these guys come out of prison, and they all wanted the same thing: 3 square meals, a cot to lay their head, a job with purpose, and a loving family. That's it. And I think we're all in that place on this journey of life. And to the extent that we are willing to have the courage to get past our fear, and it sounds maybe corny, but be in a place of love, be in a place where we're willing to risk connections with another person. And I don't know whether you can do that in politics anymore because it's so brutal. Maybe I have the luxury to do, Steve, what I never did in politics. I mean, I always loved people, but you're always conscious of, whose tribe you're with, whether that's political or whether that's an association. And now I don't have that. And so now I'm just candidly in a much healthier place.
Governor, I would agree 100%. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think it's goofy to say that. I think we thrive on love, obviously. And as men, sometimes it's hard to accept that. But, I've sort of transitioned my career. I would never compare myself to you, but in a similar way, away from the tribesmanship of politics and into media, where we have to be careful about having tribes in media. We have to be fair. We have to be accurate. We have to be complete with everybody. Governor, we are out of time on this show. It's amazing that we've run through this time quickly. I hope you'll come back and join us again, though.
Exactly.
I know the office on Summit Avenue is going to be a success, just like Jersey City and every other city, just like Patterson and every city you step foot in.
Exactly,
Governor,
with my friend, the great Patterson mayor. Thanks, Andre. And
That's
thank
right.
Jonathan for being a producer. And I want to thank Pat Amelia and even wish Pat a Merry Christmas. So
Governor, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon, Governor McGreevey. Thank you so much. With that, we're going to wrap up today's episode of Tap into Hudson. We're appreciative of Governor McGreevey joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay apart. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.